Well, hello there. Hi, Adena.
Hi. Oh, I can hear you now.
Oh, good. I'm going to move around because I
Ooh,
need to charge my computer. So, welcome. Nice to see you.
good to see you all. Hello.
Hello. We want to welcome you to the Berkeley Democratic Club interview process. And to give you a brief overview, we will interview you here and the board will vote on our recommendations. At the forum on September 19th, the board will announce their recommendation and it will show up with an asterisk on the voting ballot. This does not mean that you have the entire club endorsement, but just the board recommendation. The entire membership will still vote after the forum. We will keep voting open through Sunday evening after the meeting, and members of the club will receive an emailed ballot.
Great.
And thank you for bearing with me. I just don't want my computer to die. Okay. The forum policies will be recorded for those who are unable to attend. Furthermore, you'll have about 2 minutes to answer the questions today, and unless otherwise noted. And I was wondering if you had any questions for us before we begin.
No questions. I'm looking forward to your questions and to introduce myself to you all. Or
Great.
some of you. I guess I know about half of you. So
all right. So Nancy, will you take it away?
Okay. Hi, Adena. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So my question is, please take 1 minute to give yourself a introduction to the board, and why are you running for mayor?
Yep. All right. Do I have a timer or someone's just going to give me a wave?
Oh,
I'm the timer.
Okay, great. Thank you, Heidi. All right, so I'm running for mayor because it's time for reset at City Hall. We've had 2 city council members leave, stating that our local government has become broken and toxic. And while our council members fight each other, we aren't focusing on our problems. And I bring a fresh perspective. I'm someone who knows that it's important that we unite Berkeley around common sense solutions. And I'm focused on housing and homelessness, public safety, and infrastructure. I've been a leader in our local community as president of the League of Women Voters here, our youngest and first woman of color in over 107 years. I was appointed to the Soda Tax Commission by both former Mayor Tom Bates and current Mayor Jesse Arreguín. I've worked on a number of measures in this city, and I know the issues very well. I live here in South Berkeley with my family, and I am looking forward to your questions to learn more about your club and see what you all are focused on. Thanks for having me.
Super, spot on. I have the second question, and this is a 2-minute response. Please elaborate a little more on your top issues and the priorities that you want to address as mayor.
Yes. So when it comes to housing and homelessness, I'm someone who has experienced housing insecurity. So I understand the importance of both the policy level of things, but also making sure that we are actually implementing that policy. So I know that in Berkeley, we need to build affordable housing in every Berkeley neighborhood. I'm a supporter of missing middle housing, the upzoning, building on our BART stations. I also know that when it comes to homelessness, we need to make sure our shelters are safe and accessible. I'm sure you all know about the shooting that happened at one of our shelters. If people don't feel safe being in the shelters, they're not going to want to go to them. And we need to make sure we're providing them with the right support services as well, including mental health. When it comes to public safety, I believe we need a balanced approach. So investing in our social services, mental health, youth programming, as well as making sure our police and fire departments have the appropriate tools necessary to keep us safe. I've actually done a ride along with fire, with police. I've done a sit along with dispatch, and I've also shadowed our homeless response team. When it comes to infrastructure, I want to make sure that both our streets, sidewalks, and transportation systems are safe and accessible. I'm someone who's supporting Measure FF because I know that it's more than just paving our streets and making sure they're smooth. We also need to make sure we're allowing for safety. And when it comes to infrastructure, we should also be looking at climate change and how are we preparing our city.
Okay, I think it's me, right? The next question. My question for you is, and my name's David Shiver, been on the board time, and it's great to meet you, Adena.
Nice to meet you.
What's your vision for improving and enhancing Berkeley's downtown?
Yes, so I've spent a lot of time talking to business owners down there. I would say that actually a good part of it is just building the housing and supporting the housing that's being built there, because many of the owners have told me that they know that when there are more people who are living downtown, they're going to have more foot traffic, which will allow them to have more business. And even though, some folks disagree with me, I know that there are families and folks who are young professionals that are living in these buildings that will also help to address the impact of the flow that usually college students, when they leave in the winter break and the summer break. I also know that with our small businesses in downtown Berkeley, one of the things that they're really concerned about is homelessness. And unfortunately, folks who are having mental health crises and doing things like leaving trash and, unfortunately leaving their human waste on people's doorsteps. So we need to make sure that our streets are clean and that we're providing support for these folks so that they can have the right support they need, and they aren't, they have a place to go that's not just downtown in front of someone's shop. Public safety is another piece of this. So increased lighting, I think, is always a great option. A lot of folks don't actually know about parking and our parking in downtown. They're concerned about how to access it, but we have BART, we have public transportation. They've had increased bike racks and also the parking. And so making sure folks know about that and that we're supporting as a city, the transportation there and also the events that are happening. I think that these events have brought a lot of life into downtown, and we need to encourage that. And I also think that's something to acknowledge that's important is that, as we are building more housing downtown and they're going to be revitalizing a lot of the businesses on the ground level there. And so as things kind of come to being and more folks move in downtown, things will look very different. So thanks for that question. It's really important that we have a downtown that we can be proud of here.
Thank you for your answer.
Okay, so my question is, currently absent council direction to the contrary, city staff are continuing to follow the Martin versus Boise standard of offering shelter in every instance before closing an encampment. According to staff, they do not have the authority to enforce and close dangerous encampments, which constitute a public health hazard or even a fire hazard. Do you believe that continuing this approach is the right policy, especially given persistent and dangerous encampments?
So I have spent some time at some of these encampments, visiting them with our homeless response team and also shadowing HACK, the Homeless Action Center. And so I would say that I know that Rashi Kesarwani, council member Kesarwani, has brought forward something to the council that will be heard in the next week. And I would say that it is important that we are paying attention to the health and safety. I do know that some of these encampments can be dangerous. And at the same time, I think that we need to make sure that it's tailored narrowly enough so that we're not just saying blanketly we can just sweep all these encampments. I have some concerns about the way that we are treating encampments in our city currently, even though I know we say that we are offering shelter first. I have spoken to many folks who have had their belongings thrown away, and that includes medication, money, personal documents. And that's important because if we want people to get off the street, we need to make sure we're not throwing away their documentation. It makes it much harder for them to access housing. And personally, I do feel that we need to be focusing on making sure that we're finding them shelters and a safe encampment site or a safe parking site and putting our energy there. Because I know that sweeps can also be quite expensive. And in speaking to many officers in the Berkeley Police Department, some of them are also uncomfortable with throwing away people's belongings. Of course, there are some things that are just trash that are in encampments. And also, it's very difficult for folks to go through and figure out what is actually important and not. So I do think if we are doing sweeps, we need to be thinking more thoughtfully about how we are moving folks, because the other thing is that people can also just return to the same exact spot. And then we're not really solving anything. So I think, like I said, focusing on making sure we have shelters and places for people to go, more than focusing on moving people with sweeps. Oh, you are on mute.
Sorry. Sorry about that. So this
No.
relates to, I think, you're pointing out the narrow definition. So for instance, on the Harrison corridor, all non-criminal alternatives to enforcement, including motel rooms at the Super 8, which is now Campus Hotel, have been offered. As an example, for this encampment, do you believe the city of Berkeley should continue to acquire motels and add shelter beds before closing it, or should the encampment only, or an encampment only if it is narrowly defined and deemed dangerous with very specific definitions? Do you believe that it should be closed without any additional shelter offers?
That's a good question. When I was actually down at the Harrison and Ninth encampment, I know that there were some folks there that were disabled and in line to receive housing, but had not yet been able to access it. And so I know that's a little bit different than the scenario that you gave me. And that's why I don't feel like I have a clear answer on that, because I think that there are some people who are waiting to get housing still, and have not been offered housing. And then there are some folks who have been offered housing and aren't willing to go. And so I do think that we need to sort of parse through that a little bit and make sure that we have an individualized approach for some of the folks that are there. Because I understand also that there are some people that are there that are causing problems and impacting the businesses and are potentially dangerous. And then there are other folks that are there that have actually kept their area very clean and are very conscientious about the impact that they're having on the neighborhood. So I do just think we need to be thoughtful about how we're moving through and making sure that that as we are looking at these encampments, that we are providing a more tailored approach to what is going on there.
Thank you.
Mhm. And who knows, maybe
All
that's
right.
changed since I've been there. So that's good to know if that is the case. I'll have to go get an update.
So am I next?
All right.
Oh,
I think
I
Eric is
think,
next.
yeah, I believe I think I'm next, and I think then it's Diego, and then I think it's Remy.
Okay, thank you.
So, good morning. So my question is about housing, and that is, do you support efforts to end exclusionary zoning, and what does that mean to you? And extending upon that, what, if any, restrictions on new housing do you feel are appropriate in the Berkeley Hills and in other areas of the neighborhood that, or excuse me, other neighborhoods in Berkeley that have a particularly exclusionary history?
Yep. So I absolutely believe that we need to get rid of exclusionary zoning in the city. I'm a big supporter of that, and I've been following Missing Middle as it's been going through council. That's been very exciting for me to follow. When I feel like what you're kind of getting at here is that, of course, there were many folks who came out from District 6 and some from District 5 who were unhappy with changes to housing. They stated that they were concerned about fire danger in the hills. And I just want to say that I recognize that fire danger is absolutely a concern. I know that there are many folks who will be unable to get down from the hills during a fire, and that would be an absolute horrible disaster. At the same time, I think that many folks don't realize that the number of units that would actually be created up in the hills is actually a lot smaller than I think that they expect. Many folks I've spoken to have talked about like high rises and thousands of people moving up into the Berkeley Hills, and that's not actually what we were talking about there. And so I think it's important to make sure that folks understand, what does that actually look like? What is the impact of making changes? I think that I am interested to see what the evacuation plan looks like and have more information there to know what it will look like and the actual impact of the hills with more housing. But generally, I am supportive of allowing more housing to be built up there and not having too strict restrictions, because I think it does really show where our city is about how we have continued to discriminate when it comes to housing. Thanks for that question, Eric.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, Adena. Next question is mine. I've asked only this question the whole morning, so apologies if it feels a little wooden and scripted by now, because it is. Automated license plate readers and surveillance cameras have recently helped Berkeley police catch serious criminals, including recently nabbing a driver who did a hit and run and seriously injured a child. Do you support automated license plate readers and hotspot cameras to prevent crime and catch criminals, so long as the city complies with the surveillance ordinance and Public Works retains control over the cameras?
Yes, absolutely. I also followed that issue very closely, and at Alcatraz and Dover is actually a very, very dangerous area. And I used to live on Alcatraz and Adeline, just a little bit below that. And I know that people just go flying by there. And when I heard about that hit and run, unfortunately, I wasn't surprised. I think that there are some seriously dangerous streets in our city, and having those license plate reader cameras, I think is a benefit. And the fact that they were able to catch that person using that, I think was a huge success story for using those cameras. Thanks for your question. I think Remy's next now.
Yes. Good morning, Ms. Adena.
Good morning.
My question is a two-part one. First, what are the top 3 issues or challenges you would like to address if elected? The second part, and what specific policies or proposals would you introduce or augment?
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like I just said it, so I feel apologies if I'm repeating myself, but just to
Good.
recap it, housing and
Yeah, it's
homelessness.
helpful. It's helpful to hear it twice.
Good. Okay, great. I'll say it again. So housing and homelessness, public
Yes,
safety, and infrastructure. Those are my 3 priority issues.
great.
Maybe something I'll add a little more context. How's that? So I'm
Okay,
someone who's
great.
experienced housing insecurity in the city, unfortunately, and had a very challenging time accessing the resources. When it comes to public safety, unfortunately, right at that space, Dover and Alcatraz, I was actually mugged a number of years ago in our city. I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. And so when we talk about public safety in the city, again, I understand it from a personal perspective and as someone who has advocated on a number of policy issues. And when it comes to infrastructure, I unfortunately am someone who has been hit by a car on my bicycle, and at that Milvia and Haste intersection, which now has a really wonderful protected bike lane. And now we have daylighting laws. And I think both of those things would have really helped me in the past. So, yeah, housing and homelessness, affordable housing, making sure our shelters are safe, and public safety, making sure we have a balanced response in terms of mental health, social services, youth programming, and also making sure police and fire have appropriate services. And then infrastructure, like I said, safe streets and sidewalks, transportation systems that are accessible.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the question, Remy.
Thank you.
Who's next?
I apologize. I was trying to unmute. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And we would like to ask you now to take 2 minutes to close, and if you have anything else to add, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm running because I really think we need a reset at City Hall. I know that we have had a lot of drama, for lack of better words, on our city council. And I think it's important to have someone who can come in and work with people. I'm someone who has a proven track record, having worked in nonpartisan politics for over a decade, of bringing people together across differences to get around common sense solutions. And I think that's really important in our time currently. I'm sure you all know already, one of my opponents left city council. And, what is it that we're saying, to support someone who has left our city, had us pay for a special election, and wants to come back and be mayor in a city where we know the mayor does not have necessarily that much more power than a city council member. I think that one of my biggest concerns for the city, even though of course I'm focused on housing, homelessness, public safety, and infrastructure, as I've said, is actually our staff. I think that staff is one of our major concerns in our city, and it's really what's going to impact our ability to get things done. And I have heard from staff, I have spoken to so many staff who are very concerned about the direction of our city and want to make sure that we have a mayor who's going to support them in doing the work that they are supposed to be doing, and allowing them to do their jobs and not interfere in a way that's going to prevent them from doing the job that they're doing. That we need to create a stable environment where we can show the city that we have strong leadership, that we're focused on the important issues, and that we're not going to get distracted by sort of drama and infighting. So I think that's really essential, and I really hope to have your support. I really respect the work that your club has been doing, and I'd be very excited to partner with you all on future events. So thank you so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure to get to know more of you and to meet you. So
Thank you so
you.
much. And have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Good luck. I know you've got a lot of interviews.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.